Hey everybody, welcome to News from Heaven. This is the show where we take an annotated journey through the writings of Swedenborg to try to figure out life and the mind. And today, we're going to be asking, what is God's plan for you? I don't know. How would I know what God's plan is for you? But we can give some helpful pointers that should let us know the nature of the structure of things, which allows us to fill in some blanks. And then we're going to break it down by asking, am I qualified? Did I make the team in the mind of God? Why is hell an option? Because we are going to be looking at the plan in the big scale and where are we headed, to the state of mind that's called heaven or to the state of mind that's called hell. But why isn't it just heaven or heaven or heaven? Why is hell in there? And then finally, the nature of heaven, if we're talking about heaven so much, and why are there all these arrows in there on this diagram? So we're doing that. And if you're enjoying this show, don't forget to like and subscribe, because that's what lets us know that this is a good program, and that's what keeps the program going. But the other thing that I want you to do is leave some comments, because what we're trying to do in this show, as you know, is free ourselves from negative mental weather, or whatever you want to call it, the dark clouds of despair and depression and anxiety and doubt and fear that keep everyone down. Because if you leave what's going on for you in a comment, I've seen this time and time again in this show, that lets other people know that they're not alone, and then they talk to you about it, they talk to each other about it, and what that does is open up a little window through that isolation that brings in hope. And what we're trying to augment that with is look at these spiritual concepts as a bright reality that's outside of that. And when we're aware of that, the day-to-day worries that usually get us down don't have as much potency. And I find getting into Swedenborg, almost wherever I get into it, it has that effect to lift me up out. Hopefully we can lift you up out today. We're going to use our lifting mechanism as Divine Providence 330, subsection 2. We begin. We can tell from this, and right, we didn't hear what he just said, but I think we can make it up, the difference here, that divine love is in all of us, the evil and the good alike. So you often hear, are there chosen people? Are there God's chosen people? And some people are worth something and the others he's given up on as a project. Swedenborg is saying, even if you are in the state of wanting to harm others for your own joy, that is called evil, or if you're in the state of altruistic love, that is called good, God's divine love is in all of us. And that therefore, the Lord, who is divine love, must treat us with as much love as an earthly father treats his children, with infinitely more love, in fact, because divine love is infinite. Wow, there's so many things I want to unpack in that sentence. First of all, we have this fascinating equivalency here. We're saying divine love is in all of us. That's a good sounding thing, but what are the implications of that, especially when you go around seeing that the Lord is divine love? So that means that the Lord is in all of us. Whatever that exactly means, you've got some God in you. And doesn't matter who you are, God is there. And because of that presence, God has to love us. And he's saying, like an earthly father treats his children, maybe you had a good experience with your father, maybe you grew up with one or without one. I think the point that's being made here, especially since he goes on to say, with infinitely more love, in fact, is to realize the nature of the relationship, that the parental relationship, love relationships that people go through, where you have this absolute, devoted, caring, and you do anything for a child and what a child can mean to you, that times a billion is how God sees us. It's not that God is looking at us like students that pass or fail. We are children, which of course is not a brand new concept, but worth repeating, because divine love is infinite. And this infinity, that God is an infinite being, Swedenborg says the whole trick of existence, the most amazing thing about reality is that you have an infinite being, God, who is able to somehow interact with, love, form relationship with us finite beings. That's not an easy ratio to get around. We take it for granted because it's always been there. But this is the miracle of miracles. And not just have a relationship with, but really a loving bond with. Further, He can never withdraw from anyone. Are you ever in your dark clouds and you feel like maybe God has withdrawn from you? Everything seems dark above you. And you think, oh, God's not around. God's not here. Well, that's literally impossible. God cannot withdraw from anyone. So if you're not seeing God above, it's because God's right in there. And you're about to see just how we have a simple test that will let you know whether or not God is with you. He can never withdraw from anyone because everyone's life comes from him. So if you're alive and you're wondering, is God around? Is divine help here? Yes, because your capacity to wonder and be conscious is part of life. Thereby, God's there. The clouds love to tell you God, and maybe you're not hugely into the word God, you don't think about it like that, then fine, substitute in hope, substitute in a chance to survive, some kind of love and care. They're always trying to convince you that it's you against the concepts they're putting in there. It's you, man, I'm really filling this up. It's you against everything, against the scary stuff in reality. But that's never the truth, because God is just even between you and them, so close you couldn't believe it, in your life itself is coming out of God. Not a bad proximity to an infinite being. It does seem as though, I'm not saying it doesn't seem like he's not there. It always seems like that, as though he withdraws from evil people. But it is the evil who are withdrawing. He is still not just, okay, I made a contract with you to be a human being. I'll still lead you even though you're annoying me because you're evil. He is still lovingly leading them. So the Lord says, so based all this stuff up here, the nature of this connection, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be open to you. And I love this next one. Who among you will give a stone if his son asks him for bread? Hey, for Christmas, I'd really love some bread. Here's a rock that I found. If then you who are evil, no offense, but relative to divine love, we all have a self-centered motivation that Swedenborg talks about. So the point being made here is, even though you are intrinsically have some struggles with completely devoting love to somebody else, even so, you know how to give good gifts to your children. How much more will your Father who is in the heavens give good things to those who ask him? And this is fascinating too, because if we clean up this diagram for a second, what is a really potent message that these dark clouds can play in the mind? What can your fears tell you? Well, I've had an experience a lot of times where what they're getting you with is this fear that you're not going to get what you need. That even if you have some sort of static, frumpy picture of a God who doesn't really know what's in your heart or isn't in the minutia of the things that seem the coolest or the most potent to you, and there's something that you don't know, if an area in life you don't know if you're going to be cared for there, or you don't know if you're going to be able to recover from some kind of emotional wound there. That's what this passage in the Bible is going directly at, saying you may think that I'm not as cool as your favorite band, but if you know, being finite and evil in your own way, how to do something, don't you think I know? Don't you think I know the minutia of how things affect you emotionally? Don't you think I was planning for these events that were going to happen, and I know I'm making sure that there's no irreparable damage to you? Don't you think I have that? What do you think I've got divine intelligence. I know everything. What do you think I'm doing? I love you and I know everything. You think I'm sitting on my hands here? Like, I've got it. And I'm wherever you think I'm not, I was there before you. And I'm getting there. And I find that's such an important message to realize, that because the clouds are close, they seem more immediate, but really it's the divine love that's in there and that's immediate. And one more quote. Because he makes his sun rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the just and the unjust. And here, this sun and the rain being two different correspondences for truth, that being a very Swedenborgian thing. But here saying, look, that divine truth and love, the ability to live, is inside everybody, regardless of how you live. So even if you're worried about, is God mad at me because I did something, or is he still trying to lead and fix somebody I care about? There is no way that you're not going to get the sunshine and the rain, which is the spiritual sustenance that we all need. It is also recognized in the church that the Lord intends the salvation of all and the death of none. So there's no revenge game in there. This enables us to see that predestination to anything but heaven is contrary to divine love. And this section is about predestination, because in Swedenborg's day, there was this idea, which is still around, but it's not nearly as mainstream as it was, that God selects some people to automatically go up to heaven, and some other people, they just go to hell, and it doesn't matter what anybody did in their life, you go one way or the other, which is obviously a horrendous idea, and Swedenborg is spending some time pointing out how horrendous that is, and not only just saying, come on, of course God doesn't, but laying out the metaphysical backing for why that's a spiritual impossibility. So that's the love side of why God could never predestine or forget about people or abandon people in any state. Now we're getting to the wisdom side. Any predestination but predestination to heaven is contrary to divine wisdom, which is finite. And we get in this paragraph a fascinating definition of what predestination could mean, even if the original concept, which is this rigid sending to hell or heaven, doesn't exist. It is through its divine wisdom that divine love, so here you have the grand duality, the grand partnership, provides the means by which we can all be saved. So to say that there is a predestination to anywhere but to heaven is to say that divine love cannot provide the means of salvation. Yet we all do have the means, as just explained, and these come from divine providence, which is infinite, which may sound like a lot of theological stuff, but the way I see it is you can think about the world and complain about the fairness of God. And I'm never going to try to argue with you that it doesn't seem fair, and I'm as bothered by the next person about the suffering that I myself have to go through, let alone what a lot of people in the world have to go through, the horrendous conditions, and the seeming unfairness in all things. Right? That there are some people who are here, born, they're happy, right? They have relatively good things around them. They have nice trees. They have a safe home environment. They have a certain amount of wealth, something like that. And then there are other people who are born into bad situations where there is perhaps war around them. There is degradation of the social, economic environment. Whatever it is that you would think, this person is going to not have as good a shot as this person. And then there are people in other environments as well. And so we're not getting into the question of why should people suffer in the first place, or is this all fair? But particularly in relation to the plan, the idea that you can either go up to heaven or down to hell, wouldn't people in a harder situation be at a disadvantage? Because when you are around things that are violent and you don't have the opportunity to do things that are constructive, aren't you much more likely to get sucked into these cycles which will pull you down? And isn't that kind of like predestination? Because if God is going to let you as a child be brought into a situation where you're not going to have a good moral compass, where you're going to need to have a lot more pressure to obtain the necessities of life, which would lead you to consider doing things like stealing and stuff that somebody who had enough money anyway wouldn't even need to face, isn't God setting some people up to fail and setting up others to succeed? And what Swedenborg is asserting here is that the means of salvation, whatever they are, and salvation being abstaining from the draw towards loving what is evil and rejecting what is good. And that looks different for every single person, because we all have different battles we're fighting, and we all have different measures of progress that we need to break out of this and turn toward God. One person who's had to face a lot in their life, the little bit of progress they make might mean enough, whereas another person makes a lot of progress, but it has the same impact on their spirit because the other person was facing more to begin with. Even in these situations, the means for salvation are there. What those are I couldn't know in each person's individual life. It's some understanding of a spiritual system, whoever gave it to them. It's some kind of choices that they're making. It's some kind of coming to know the divine through life. It's some sort of love you feel for someone who's with you. Whatever it is, regardless of our situation, divine providence is at work making sure, even if the distribution of suffering may be uneven, everybody's got just as good a shot to accept the divine pull upward and toward heaven. I'm not saying that satisfies the answers to all your questions, but it's a side of it I never thought about. To make sure that no matter where you are or what's going on, you have the means of salvation, that nobody has a worse shot at making the transition up into heaven, even if the earthly go is really rough. So you'd think, with that all out there, wouldn't we all go to heaven? As we were saying before, why is hell an option in the first place? That's a decent-sized discussion. Why don't we just touch on it here? The reason some of us are not saved is that divine love wants us to feel heaven's happiness and bliss in ourselves. That's strange. I would have thought you would say some of us are not saved because the divine didn't care, or the divine has a weird system, or the divine is mad at a few people. How is that why some of us are not saved? Wanting us to feel happiness and bliss. Well, the key is this last phrase, in ourselves. Otherwise, it would not be heaven for us. So if we didn't feel the happiness and bliss, this is very mysterious so far, in ourselves, it would not be heaven. So we have to have this in ourselves to make the heaven work. Okay, what comes next? And this feeling cannot happen unless it seems to us that we are thinking and intending on our own. So you have to have autonomy. And this, yes, is getting into that mightiest of discussions, free will. And Swedenborg sort of glosses over it here because it's not his section on it, but he just gives it this one more sentence. If it were not for this appearance, nothing could be given to us, and we would not be human. Nothing, including psychological states, which heaven is the state of love and wisdom. So if we didn't have this ability to choose whatever was attractive to us, you couldn't be a human being. We think, you could just have humans that were forced to just do good things all the time. But that's actually part of the makeup of being human. And you couldn't receive anything, including the good stuff. This is the reason for divine providence. That's why divine providence exists, is to, in a state of freedom, get it so that there are these options available to everyone. The option to go up, no matter what, is available to everyone, which is the result of divine wisdom stemming from divine love. So there is a lot of thought and a lot of heart put into it. As crazy as life is, there's something rather than just chaos. Still, and then finally here we get into the nature of heaven. And this is a pretty cool phrase here. Still, this does not negate the truth that we all are predestined to heaven and none to hell. This truth would be negated, though, if the means of salvation were lacking. So if you didn't have those purple dots I drew on the other thing, then you would never have a shot, and it would be like God abandoning you. So it's interesting to think that no matter what in life, those means will be different for every person, but they're there. However, I have already shown that we are all given the means of salvation, and that the nature of heaven, here's our key word, the nature of heaven is to provide a place there for all who lead good lives, no matter what their religion may be. Which may not sound like an earth-shattering statement these days. Ecumenical, all paths can lead to the top of the mountain is much more common now. But in Swedenborg's day, this could get you put on trial. His works were put on trial because he's saying you don't have to walk the one path that the state church tells you to walk. And here I would go even farther to say the way that they live their particular spirituality, that you have no idea what exactly someone's path is. And really what we're looking at is the good. And you don't even know exactly what the good is for someone else, because what looks to you like chaos in someone's life, or they're making bad choices, but you don't know what they're up against, and you don't know what their motives are for doing it. So the best you can do is say, hopefully God is working through the means in that person, and anything we're saying about someone else is really applicable to ourselves. So we don't know exactly how God is leading us up, but know that there is a way, because those means are somewhere, and God, the whole point of providence is to activate those and pull us up. So somehow, whatever it is in your life, God is working to, come on, don't you want to be happy and live in love? It's there. And that's the news from heaven. How did it work? How did it feel? Did you find yourself lifted up at all above the daily fray of negativity, just to think that there is something like a divine providence, that there is love and wisdom, that there is salvation, that there is this pulling up, that is all God, our great parent, is thinking about? Did it help? Leave a comment. Let me know if this show worked for you, because we love to get feedback and improve it. But also, what did you take away? Either from something I said, that would be great, but if not, the text or something you were thinking about while I was talking about something else, what tools did you pull out of this? Because if you put your tools in the comments, other people come and read those. Oh, this is an idea I'm going to apply in life. Someone else sees it, they apply it in their life. I'm going to see it, and then I can apply it in my life. And together, we can all provide each other with a means for this miniature salvation. Because really, this picture here, where we're trying to get above the clouds, that's like a mini little salvation. And in every dark state, I think you could apply what Swedenborg is teaching us on the big level to this little level. So every dark state that you come into, everything that feels hopeless, somewhere in that situation are the means to salvation from that state of mind. So maybe it's that you could go and take a walk right now. Maybe it's that you could call somebody that you need to talk to. Somehow, I think the means are there. Even though sometimes you'll have to grind it out, but it could be the means to shortening it or the means to dampening the suffering. Where is God placing those means in our lives? If you find them, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. That's how the show goes forward. Hopefully something from this you take out and you have a better day, a better week from it. And thanks so much. We'll see you next time.